Sorry. So we're just gonna, but you've got time. Do your thing. Yeah, because you're fine.
Oh, that's the camera.
Yeah. It's just to let people know if they're trying to pop on and can't find us. This way they can. And then I'll cut the front of it off like I did last night because there was like 6 minutes or 7 minutes in front of Alec before he started. So I just trimmed it off today.
Oh, yeah, can't tell good stories anymore.
Yeah, now the time for story time is over.
Yeah, this would be.
I have a robot.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Oh, wow. Oh, wait, you didn't mean like an actual robot that like could do that. I thought you meant like robot that like could do that. I thought you meant like.
A robot. They had one, but
Oh,
didn't have one.
I was like,
My kids
no.
have so many Lego things. I just found this already made.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, there are people popped on. Say hello, Frederick. Hello. Say hello, Evan. Hello. Say hello. And Jack Ackus.
Hi.
Hi. Yay. Okay, so we'll just hang out for a
Jack
sec.
made my mother very, very happy.
I do. I seriously think of her every time I walk into a tournament. I walk into that area and I just think of your mom. Because she's the first person I think I ever met at first.
Really?
Because we registered with her.
Well, there you go. It's her birthday a couple days ago. Jack always writes on her Facebook page, and she always gets she always tells me about it. Jack remembered me again, and I'm like, Jack's a good guy. Yeah, but he says he misses me, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, okay. But it makes her very, very happy. She's 91, so.
91.
91 years old.
My mom just turned 86.
Yeah. So, anyway, you made her day. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I need some water. Where's the nearest restaurant?
There's a restroom right around the corner there. So, that was probably the only thing that made her happy, but you know what? Jack can do that. That's awesome.
I want to go to the channel. How do I get there?
Maybe she'll do this, and I'll see if I can go over.
So you guys all set for nationals and the 2 venues and the whole nonsense thing again? Don't shake your head.
Yes.
No, shake your head. Up and
Yes,
down.
we're always ready. No, we gotta work on UX licenses. That involves money, I have that. What does it have to? Well,
How much does it cost?
well, those are like thousands, so you won't just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna end up, yeah. It's paid to the internet, that's how it works.
Evan, how well do you know the missions?
I don't know them as well as I did last year, because I haven't had to lead team, but I know most of them pretty well, and I reread the manual all the way through again today.
How about you, Fred? Do you know it very well?
I know it pretty well, but I have to go out to you.
Oh, well,
There you go.
that's all you need.
I don't know them at all. I'm gonna learn with you.
Oh, well. I have read through this a few times. But so easier.
Okay, we're rolling.
Oh yeah, it's always just waiting for you to be ready, Jack. It's all good. We're ready to go. We've got 10 people online right now so far, live with us.
This is gonna bloom to like hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, let's just wait for hundreds of
Word gets out
thousands.
of how exciting this night is.
That's
You
right.
watch. It's going viral.
That's right.
And I got a special treat that's gonna make it go not
Antiviral. That's good.
Well, okay, again.
Yeah, we'll wait a few minutes, Jack, if you want to. Just wait and let everybody else, give them a chance to pop on.
Are peeps from New Zealand on? Can you tell?
No, it doesn't tell me where they are, but we can ask them. If anybody can hear me, if you're in the chat room, I know Mick Lown has already said hello. So if you're in the chat room, say hello to us and tell us who you are and where you're from. If you're watching while we get ready to hear from, this is Jack Ackus. He is the extraordinaire head referee here in Australia. Aren't you fabulous, Jack? Look at you.
Where's the, I'm looking there, or there?
Oh no, because I can't see.
We got
I don't have a smartphone. You wanna see my phone?
Yeah, I
Oh, don't
texted you
have one.
today. I thought you did because I texted you
It's in
this
the car.
morning.
It's in the car.
Oh, a lot of good it's going to do you
Cost
there.
$10, a big W on sale. Actually, no, I think that was a full price.
Is it a flip phone?
And I bought like a $60 payment plan a year ago. I don't think I've used it up yet.
You sure it still works? Have you tried it?
Last month I got a phone call.
Okay.
So I don't know if I can call, but people can call me.
Oh, hi, it's Carrie from QUT Gardens Point, Brisbane. Hello,
Hey,
Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
Yeah.
You're in for a treat tonight.
Woohoo.
It's gonna be like the best tournament ever. I mean, the theme,
The theme rock.
into orbit. You can't get better than that. We have to have like a dance, like a launch dance where every kid goes down and jump up into the air. Yeah.
Have we told people the special reward yet for this year?
No.
What?
What's the special
Yeah,
reward?
yeah. Yeah, go ahead, here we go. Special reward, hold on.
This is sort of breaking news.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. So, whoever wins the Champions Award this year at Nationals,
Oh, yeah,
they're gonna have a star named after them.
Oh.
yeah, cool.
After the team.
Uh-huh.
That's
Ooh. That is cool.
That'd be kind of cool, then.
It is cool. It's just something extra fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have, yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be awesome. So, but that's only Nationals, because we can't afford to do it then.
It's about $400 a star, isn't it?
Yeah, but we'll suck it up. We'll do it for API too. API's on next year.
I
Woohoo.
won't plan to be here.
Be here, please. It's gonna
And
be
for
beginning of July.
DDU, I missed DDU.
DDU's
You know
gonna
how
be
hard that
ended.
was? It was really hard to miss
Yeah, and we
DDU.
might have another, maybe little opportunity for you.
Steven's on from New Zealand. Steven.
Excellent.
Steven.
Steven and John Hall are on from New Zealand.
Hi, Steven.
Awesome. Super good.
Kiwis.
Yeah, we got some
Oh,
kiwis.
hey, welcome New Zealand. We love having you. The problem this year is I can't see, there's no screen. All we have is this little thing about this big. So I don't know what it looks like.
Oh,
Do you
well,
want to get my computer out? We could.
I've got you clear.
No, that's actually it's probably better that I don't have to look at myself on the screen.
Okay.
So
You're my
I'm
chat room.
ready.
Are you ready to
anytime.
go?
Super good, thank
I'm
you.
ready.
Let's go.
All right. Frederick?
Okay, welcome to the referee training session for the 2018 Into Orbit. There's 4 components to be aware of. The 4 components are the field setup. So you should have like a handout kind of like this. If not, you can go online and find the field setup guide. You should also have the challenge guide. Challenge guide covers 2 components, the rules and the missions, and the 4th component to be aware of as a head referee is what your role is. So let me start with your role. I think your biggest role is to make sure that every kid has fun, so much fun they want to come back next year. Now, one way you can have fun is, actually, we have a little problem, a technical problem. Can you turn that camera around a little bit? Just turn it around. Yeah, at that red wall, just for a second, guys. Just a small technical, don't laugh. It's a small technical glitch. We have to make this thing fun, and to make it fun, sometimes it helps to dress fun. Here we go. Another way you can make it fun and more relevant for the kids is when you speak to them, if you're a tall person especially, get down on a knee and talk to them face to face. It gives them a more sense of comfort, which is real important to these kids. Keep in mind, these kids have spent weeks, if not months, planning the strategy and the robot design and programming and everything else to get to where they are at that moment. And they're gonna come up there so nervous. So whatever you can do to lighten the mood a little bit without taking their focus away would be much appreciated by everybody. So let's go into the introduction of my assistants here. Evan. Evan's gonna be helping me quite a bit. And behind the camera is Fred. And of course you've met Luann
And why not?
and Winona.
Yeah, there's a couple of changes
So they can hear it.
this year that has to do with judging and roughing.
always be able
Do you want me to do that now or later?
No,
Okay, so, I don't know that you're all aware of this. So, there's a couple of changes this year for people who have done this before. We're running a couple of pilots for the judging process here in Australia this year. And we went through all this with the judges last night, but one of them in particular is gonna affect the robot game. So, the robot design judging is now gonna take place at the robot table, and they're also gonna be running their first round as part of that judging session.
so will the judges be at that first round?
Yes, the judges will be at that first round. The first round is gonna be a lot, it's gonna be more time between matches, because probably at least 15 minutes, because the judges are gonna actually be at the table letting the kids talk to them for about 7.5 or 8 minutes. And then the judge is gonna step back just a little bit so the kids can run their first round, and the judges will actually be able to see what the robot does on the table. So as referees, first round is gonna be a little different than what you're used to, and it's gonna be super important. I'm probably gonna put it on you guys to try to make sure that the judges stay on time, because this is new for our judges, and I think we have the potential to get really, really far behind. And so as a head ref or as referees, if you can kind of get, keep the judges on point, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, yeah. Add some more stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So, but it is a big change, so I want you to be aware of that. I also think the kids are probably gonna be a little bit more nervous.
I think it'll be the first round.
And so you're gonna have to be super gentle with them and really, really encouraging, because if the judging session goes badly, and sometimes they do, right? Then when the kids run that first round, they're not gonna be in the best place in their head.
Yeah,
And so you're gonna have to be aware of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think that's the biggest change that I want to talk about. There was
Okay.
one other one, but I can't remember what it is.
Well, just, when you think of it, just jump on in.
So,
Okay, the way we're gonna run this tonight, we're just gonna start now with the challenge guide. If you have this with you or on your computer, we're gonna go to page 17. We're gonna start with the robot game rules. The rules begin with the guiding principles, and the first guiding principle is gracious professionalism. I'm gonna pause for a moment with this question. I want you to think to yourself, what does gracious professionalism mean to you? What is it you want to see these kids demonstrate during the day? If you see any good examples of gracious professionalism or some anti-examples of gracious professionalism, we want you to have a form to fill out and send to the judges. Because sometimes when the judges get down to the final decisions about who's going to nationals, that little bit of gracious professionalism that you sent from the robot game to them might help them decide who should or should not go to the nationals. So is that a normal form that everybody?
no, there's a brand new form this year.
Brand new form.
It is pretty special.
Okay, we like special.
Oh, we love special. It's very complete, and you will all have them, and you should have them filled out in full.
Okay, you can interpret that. Yeah, the head referee interprets things.
It used to be just a few lines, you could write some.
Yeah.
Now there's different kinds of smiley faces for exemplary versus excellent versus good versus fair versus
Guys,
poor versus.
let me suggest something. This is unofficial, so I'm gonna zap this as soon as I say it. Keep it simple.
The form is not simple at all.
Keep it simple.
It's 2 pages long.
What? Just one line's okay.
Yeah.
The judges just want to read one simple thing as long as you can express what you actually saw in a
Yes.
good way. Okay,
It's special.
I need to look at that special. Let's skip number 2 and go to number 3, benefit of the doubt. The benefit of the doubt rule is for the referee. Sometimes things happen and you just don't know what to do. You really want to make a decision in the favor of the team, but you're struggling to find some rationale, some ruling that backs you up. You can't find it, but there's still, you just think it's right to give them the points. Benefit of the doubt can come in. You can interpret that any way you want. Usually it's how close is it to the line. And that's a simple example of what benefit of the doubt means, but it goes beyond that. It just goes to other things that sometimes you can't even plan until the moment happens. You think, oh, benefit of the doubt is gonna work, I'm gonna give them that score. Don't give things away free, of course, but if you feel it's right, use that rule. Okay, let's go on to variability. Number GP4, variability is all about the table and the border and the mat. Mats are gonna be wrinkled, they're gonna be curved, we're gonna have some tables where the edges are just a few millimeters different. You're gonna have some splinters along the side. All these variables are suggested in GP number 4. So the team should be ready for them, and even so, like the lighting, students are gonna come in and they're gonna say the light's different. It was different at the last table. Well, that's one of the variabilities they have to deal with. Number 5, information superiority. Make sure that you understand the order of superiority. Of course, you can look that up. Okay. And the most important thing I think in that one is this one right here, circled. Video has no authority. Do not let anybody show you any videos saying the referee's wrong, here's the proof. Don't look at anybody's video, because once you look at one, you're gonna have everybody coming up to you. Just say no to that first one. That keeps it easy. Okay, definitions. What definitions are most important? Well, they're all important, but let's start with equipment. Equipment, let's say this is a robot. Equipment is everything attached to it. Of course, you can't bring that because it's not Lego, but let's say that was Lego and that was on the robot, that's equipment. Equipment is everything attached to the brick. Everything on part of the robot is equipment. Okay? And that has relevance later on in some of the rules. Robot mission model. The mission model is everything on the table. It's the mission models in the base, the mission models in the field outside the base. So it's everything on the table when they arrive. Okay? Let's see, the base. Okay, the base. Now, for those of you who've been here for many years, I apologize for going over some simple things, but for new people, sometimes it's hard to understand what the base actually is. The base goes from, I want you out, the outside line. See that black line? On the outside of that black line, the outside part is part of the base, and it goes all the way around like this, and like this. It comes up to the corner. It does not include the top or outside of the border. Keep that in mind. The base is only inside the borders, not on top or outside. And the base is infinitely high. However, at the start, the first launch, or any launches, the robot can only be 12 inches or 30.5 centimeters high.
Yep.
And it will help you if you have a ruler of some sort that's 30.5 centimeters high. With use, you can just put it next to that robot and it makes it go real quick. All right.
Okay, Jack, as
Yes.
we go, they have questions for you. So we've got your first question.
First question,
Yes.
okay.
So Matt from Oladola asked, is it worth mentioning that equipment is still equipment even when it's not touching the robot? And
Yeah.
you may have to repeat that because they may not hear me.
Okay, I think, okay, is equipment still equipment even when it's not touching the robot? I think what he's talking about is if the robot had some equipment, if that was made of Lego, and it drove out there and put something down and brought it back, would that still be equipment? Yes, equipment is anything you bring to the table to be used as part of the mission. Did I answer that?
Additionally, equipment that may start off of the robot. So many teams will bring maybe 2 or 3 different tools. So that also includes maybe that 3rd or that 4th tool that they put on the robot later during the run. It's important to kind of keep track of all of that equipment, all of the things that they'd like to have during the run sort of need to be out at the start of the run, and you need to take a glance over them to make sure that there's nothing extra in there. one of the big things that you kind of have to look for is extra motors and extra sensors. So you're only allowed to bring a total of 4 sensors to the field, and a total of 4 motors to the field.
As many sensors as you want.
I'll get to that. I'll clarify that, yes. I will clarify that in a moment.
Jack will clarify that, but you have to take a good look over it, and they need to have it sort of all out on the table.
Yeah, so the equipment is more than just what's on touching the robot. It could be dropped off in the field away from the robot. It's the equipment you have on the side, on the table, on the floor, in your hands. Everything you bring to the table to be used during that mission. Okay, during any mission, during that match, I should say. Moving on to the launch. Okay, the launch. The first launch, when we say 3, 2, 1, what should we say this year? We used to go 3, 2, 1, Lego. I'm thinking we should go 3, 2, 1, blast off? Or 3, 2, 1, launch? What do you guys, I can't see you, but you can see me. If you're at home, I know, but we're watching. If you like 3, 2, 1, blast off, raise your hand.
Jack. I think that Lego education would probably prefer if we keep Lego in the launch sequence.
You're right.
Sorry.
Lego's important. It's true. Lego. We'll keep it 3, 2, 1, Lego.
I like it.
Once, the real purpose of bringing that up was, when can the team launch the robot? The moment you say la, so 3, 2, 1, la. At that moment, when they hear la, that's when they can launch the robot. Because sometimes I go 3, 2, 1, Lego! And I take up the first 10 seconds by saying, oh. Okay. So 3, 2, 1, la. Lego.
And Jack, I thought of the other thing whenever you get to a good breaking point, but not now.
Good breaking point.
Okay.
Now.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another new rule this year that I was a little bit, it's another new rule this year. So in the past, if a team has come and not done all parts of the FLL program, they were still able to compete for the Robot Performance Award. This year, unless you do all parts of the FLL program, unless you do a research project, you do the core values session, you do all the judging sessions, while you can still let them run the robot, they are not eligible for the Robot Performance Award. This is brand new, okay, because we have we have some teams that really just want to focus on the robot, and First Lego League really is about all parts of the program coming together. So if you have teams that haven't done the research project, they cannot win a Robot Performance Award, nor any other award for that matter. So I just wanted to make that clear to the referees as well.
And you may also want to take this opportunity just to quickly tell the referees what's going to happen during round 1.
I already did.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. No worries.
Yes.
I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, so, yep, just brand new stuff.
Okay, the last letter D, D number 10 is about transporting. Transported means any equipment that is being, taken from its place. If you have this in front of you, taken from its place, moved to a new place, and or being released in a new place. It is being transported. It's important to understand that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This is one of those rules that we could spend a long time on. At the end of this training session, I'll have a question and answer session. If you have some questions about transporting, ask me at the end. I think we might cover some of those answers before we get there. All right, so now we're going down to R01. We're getting to the equipment, the softball, software and people rules. Okay, all equipment must be, of course, Lego. There are some exceptions, and you can read those exceptions. The controller, you're only allowed one controller. The controller is the piece that sits right on top. That's the part that you program. Pretty simple, but again, if you have any questions, you can ask about that later. Only one controller. And the important part about that is they're only allowed one controller in the room where the robot game is happening. Any other controllers they have must stay back in the pit area. Motors, here's where we go. Evan already mentioned this once. You're allowed up to 4 motors. In terms of sensors, You can have as many as you like. You can have 4, but you can have more than 4. You can have 8, 10, 12, as many as you want, as long as they fit in this area. That's page 19 of the challenge guide. Okay, rule 05, no other electronics are allowed in the competition area. Okay, nothing, no laptops. Some teams bring laptops up to the table and they're programming up to the moment that they are ready to launch. No laptops in the area. Let's go to number 8, technicians. Technicians are the team players that are up at the table managing the match. You're allowed 2 technicians at any one time. The rest of the team needs to stand back. You know what we do here in New South Wales, or more specifically at Macquarie, we stand 1 meter back. We usually have tape line, and this is a good idea, is to put a piece of tape as far back as you can go. 1 meter is usually good to keep the rest of the team behind. Now team members can tag team in and out, but you're only allowed 2 at a time. There's one exception to that. If there's a problem on the field and the robot's misbehaving, you might have one expert team member back here who's allowed to step up and make a temporary maintenance adjustment while those 2 others stay there. Okay, next one. You can see I've got lots of notes on this page. This is page 20. I think it has the most information of any page.
Oh, we got a question in?
Yep, we have
Yes.
a question, which is, Stephen Moran, while we're talking motors, are you allowed the Lego pull motors?
No, you're not. That's one of the ones that specifically says is not allowed. I think that's later down in the all Lego parts. One of the exceptions is allowable power.
Except for the
factory
motors.
made wind up /
Okay.
pullback motors are not allowed. RO6.
Okay, hopefully that answers it. Okay, before the match timer starts, it says here they're allowed at least 1 minute. 1 minute for first-year teams is never enough, so I hope you plan more than 1 minute. I think 2 minutes would be the minimum you want to offer. How much do we usually have, Luann, between matches? 3, 4, 5 minutes?
We normally run about 8-minute cycles,
8 minutes.
so that's 2.5 minutes, but then you have to realize that, I mean, you have to give the team leaving a couple of minutes to do the scoring and get off the table.
That's right, because that 8 minutes, the way I mentioned, includes the scoring at the end and the reset time. So they usually have about 3 or 4 minutes to set up after the scoring's done and the reset's done.
Something like that.
Yes.
But it says 1 minute, but I wouldn't push that because it's unachievable for first-year teams. Okay, this is also the time that a team needs to calibrate their robot. They can calibrate the robot anywhere they want on the field. When I say calibrate, I mean the light calibration. If you look at any table, certain areas are lighter or darker than other areas, and every table is different. The practice tables are different. Table across from this table is different. So they need to calibrate it at the place they think is most suitable for their robot for that match. They can also ask to readjust some mission models if the mission models are not in the correct position. But they should ask you for permission first, and maybe you would want to have a referee adjust it instead of have the teams. It's up to you. Up to you. Handling during the match. Okay. Okay, it says you, meaning the team, technicians, are not allowed to engage with the field other than the base. Everything in the base can be handled, but everything outside that base cannot be handled. Give me a second to catch up.
The second exception in R10 is good to point out. I think that's different. So you may pick up equipment that broke off the robot unintentionally anywhere, anytime. So the second one here in R10, this is different this year than previous years, and I think we were having a chat about it a little earlier, but I think it's good to note for those of you who have done this before, because this is different. But the idea here is that as the robot's driving around, there's a chance that maybe some piece of the robot accidentally falls off, or they run into something and some part of the robot breaks off unintentionally. the team is allowed to retrieve that, bring it back to base, and they can put it back on the robot and use it again. The key here, though, is unintentionally, and that's just a judgment call for the referees.
Okay.
And also, just a quick question, Mick Lown also said, he said, I know Luann mentioned this earlier, but it should be noted these times are different for the first robot run because the judging is happening. So she did mention it, but you may want to tell them how that timing, because you just said it was 8-minute cycles, but he just wants everybody to know that that is what.
Yeah, the 8-minute cycle is for rounds 2 and 3, right? So for round 1, it's gonna be a lot longer now, but for rounds 2 and 3, hopefully it might even be quicker than 8 minutes, because you know, we get going fast for rounds 2 and 3.
Mick, did you come in late?
No, he heard her mention it.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, just no, because we didn't specify that 8 minutes was for rounds 2 and 3.
Oh, okay.
And I would tell you, at some of our events, we could go quicker than that even for rounds 2 and 3, because we're behind and we do 5-minute cycles sometimes. So it's whatever you gotta do to get that done. But I think our, like, overall plan is 8 minutes. But
Yeah,
you do what makes sense.
yeah. Okay. Now, I think you can't interact, you can't engage with the field. However, if the robot's out there and it's not behaving the way you want it to, and you want to rescue, whatever you call it, interrupt the robot, you are allowed to pick it up, but there is a penalty. And we've got 6 penalty, what do you call these? Markers?
I don't know.
Penalty markers.
That's more than.
And this year, they're only 3 points each. And there's only 6 of them. So the most points you can lose is 18. And in the past, they used to say you can't use it as a strategy to bring the robot back. But that rule's gone. I didn't see that unless somebody has seen that in here and I missed it. So there will be teams using this 3-point penalty as a strategy to bring that robot back. Okay, there's another exception. There's another exception to where you can engage
Penalty disc.
penalty disc. Thank you. I knew somebody would get that. I bet the answer came from New Zealand. Did it?
No,
I'm looking
at the challenge guide.
It came from Evan. New Zealand would have done it. Here's the other exception. If something accidentally gets pushed over the line, accidentally, you're allowed to bring it back. Now, accidentally can be interpreted in so many ways. Here's a scenario. The kids are programming, they have like 20 programs in here maybe, and they push the wrong one, and it goes partway out, and they realize it's the wrong program, and they bring it back. That's an interpretation. There's no rule that tells you what to do. So I interpret it this way. To me, that's an accident. If they pushed the wrong button and they realized it before it was completely out, I am saying allow them to bring it back as long as it hasn't left the base entirely.
So Oladola has said strategic retrieval is allowed. So is that what you're saying?
Strategic,
Strategic retrieval.
well, but that could be out here too. Does he mean? Right?
This was in reference to the penalties that we were
Oh
talking
yeah,
about. Yep.
strategic retrieval is
Yeah.
allowed.
Okay.
Okay, good. But 3-point penalty for the first 6. All right. Let's go on to the next rule, Oh, going back to handling during the match. Anything that's disturbed out there by your robot in a way that you don't like it, I say you, I mean the technicians, has to stay that way. We get some first-year teams, and the robot bumps something, and they want to reach out and they want to move it back in place, like that. They want to move it back. No. So just make sure you, after they move it, just put it back in place. No penalty, just put it back. Number 11, mission model handling. Oh, this is the loose one. Okay. So, any piece of equipment, let me read this so I get it right. Okay, if you combine a mission model with something, including the robot, the combination must be loose enough that if you pick up the mission model, nothing else will come with it. Now, I spent a long time interpreting that one as well. So this guy here, he's obviously attached. he's attached. There's no gravity test. It's not the gravity test like before. If I pick him up, let's say he was like that. Okay? Now if I pick him up, nothing else comes with it. However, he was lightly attached. The rule allows this. I don't know if the kids will figure it out, but the gravity test doesn't exist anymore. So keep that in mind. If it's lightly attached and does not come off like that, it's still legal because nothing else comes with it when you pick it up. Okay. Next one. And if you have any questions, please jump in, because it takes me time to transition from one rule to another. Does this allow? Yeah, it does. Okay, storage. Okay, storage. Storage is on. Some teams have way too much stuff to fit in the base. And oftentimes we give it a little table, and they have way too much stuff to fit in that little table. So what are they going to do with that stuff, that equipment? Well, they can store it. They can give it to team members over here. They can put it, yes, I'm allowing on the floor. They can put it here, but they cannot put it anywhere else on the field like you could 2 or 3 years ago. So it must be in the base, being held on the little stand, or on the floor in sight of the referee. So it can't be hidden under the table. It has to be within sight of the referee was to walk over there. Storage. Okay, ready situation, completely in the base. Okay, we talked about that. Go, last, okay, we talked about that. Launch of the first launch, we talked about that. Okay, interrupting. R14. The robot must, okay, if you interrupt the robot, that means that the robot is completely outside the base and you touch it. Anytime you touch that robot, when it's completely outside the base, it is an interruption. So here's the rule. You must stop the robot immediately. By stopping, they can turn it off or pick it up. Okay? Then calmly, this is the key part. It says calmly bring it back. For those of you who aren't new, some of these kids are going to be so hyped up. As kids are screaming and hollering, there's music going, they're counting down 10, 9, 8, they're so nervous, they're going to grab that robot and they're going to bring it back so uncalmly that they're going to break stuff.
Anti-calmly.
Yeah, anti-calmly. They're going to knock into stuff, they're going to knock this stuff, they're going to grab it so hard they break stuff. So what do? If they do calmly pick it up, then it's simple. But you're the head referee, and we're going to make it challenging for you. So what do you do if they have something, a mission model, that they carry out of base, and they realize, oh, the robot's not going to work correctly, and they grab it fast, and it drops right there. It dropped completely out of base. What are you going to do with that? What do you guys think?
I know what I would do.
What would you do, Evan?
I would say it was incidental, and if it came from base, I'd give it back to them. If it didn't come from base, I'd take it. So
This came from base.
if it came from base, I'd give it back to them.
And yes, I agree, and the reason for that is because it says, somewhere in my messy writing, transported things
Which came from base.
during the most recent match, always keep it. Always keep it. So if they interrupt. The moment they interrupt, everything stops. And if they drop it off, they get to keep it. It says so in the rules. Now, what if they pick this up out there? They pick that up somehow. They pick it up, and then it's going the wrong way, so they grab it like this, and they bring it back. What do we do with this? Evan.
It's mine now.
Mine being the referee.
The
yes.
referees.
Yes, because the
Yes,
rule
we asked
is
them to hand it to us.
whenever anything is picked up on the field, that means it does not originate in base. If the robot's interrupted, whatever's picked up on the field gets taken by the referee.
Except for
Except for,
if they interrupt it and that piece is in base, is completely in base at the time in which they interrupt it. Which is, I think that might be different. But transported thing which did not come from base during the most recent launch, but is now completely in base when they interrupt it. So let's say the robot's here, halfway out.
oh,
is
not
grabbing-
completely in base, I got you.
Right, so let's say the robot's here, and it doesn't make it all the way back to base, but this thing they grabbed from outside of base is completely inside, and they interrupt it, they get to keep that.
Why? Tell them why.
Because, so in R14, under like the third bullet point, transported thing which did not come from base during the most recent launch. So there are two scenarios, completely in base, they keep it, and not completely in base, give it to the referee.
Just
So we're
sorry,
looking at
that's
that first one.
Yes, please answer that question.
Yes, and this one?
Okay, bring it up.
Okay.
Let me,
I was trying to deal with it quietly, but
let,
Do I just tell him yes?
yes.
let me support what I'm saying. Can you show this angle real easy, real good? So the transporter thing is completely in the base. The robot's not, but that thing is. So there's still gonna be a touch penalty, right?
Mhm.
But they get to keep this because this thing is completely in base. Now, what if we do this? And they grab it. Same penalty, but now what happens to this?
It's the referees now.
Referees, whoa, I guess the rule is, the lesson there is back in now.
Or make it all the way back in.
Or make it all the way back.
Yeah.
And keep that in mind, a lot of teams are gonna be so hyped up, like I said, they're gonna be so excited, they're gonna wanna grab that robot. Oops. Grab that robot, when it's right about there, it's moving kinda fast, they're gonna grab it. And you can see that it's still across that line, they're gonna grab it. What would you do? Would you penalize them with a 3-point penalty, which is not a big deal, but also would mean you take this away? Would you do that, or would you give them benefit of the doubt? I want everybody to think about that. The robot's coming in, and you have a nice run, and you know it's gonna make it in, but they get so excited they pick it up when it's right there. Everybody think about their answer. Okay, raise your hand, actually, raise your hand, jump up and down, turn around 3 times, if you think the answer is you should penalize them.
Mick Lown said, usually benefit of the doubt and warning for next robot game.
Good. Mick, good answer.
Next robot game.
Warning.
Match.
I normally warn them for the next launch. So I normally, I agree with that first time if it's close, give them the benefit of the doubt, but I'll normally warn them once the robot's gone back out that, that they were too close that time. They need to give it a bit more space.
So immediately you're gonna warn them.
Yeah, immediately.
I would actually go one step further, and if you see they're really hopped up waiting for it to get back to base, just drop them a quick, just wait till it goes in.
Yeah.
That often helps.
You can actually talk to the technicians up at the table to say, hey, whoa, wait. Yes, talk to them, because they are nervous, they're not thinking. But Mick, you're on the right track. What's next?
Stranding.
Stranding, okay,
Oh,
stranding.
wait, there's another cool one with interrupting. This is new this year as well. There's another new one for interrupting, the very last piece.
Which one?
So if you don't intend to relaunch, in this case, you may shut down the robot and leave it in place. So this is new this year.
No, I think I had it last year.
I think it's noted that it's new.
Yeah?
I think we've always done it that way, but now it's in the
We've always
rules.
done it this way, but it's in the rules. So
Yeah.
the idea here
okay.
is that even if it's,
And there's only 5 seconds left, they can't do anything, they can just touch it and turn it off, no interruption penalty.
as long as they don't try to bring it back at that point, as it's just, or I guess you could bring it back. No, you could bring it back.
Yeah.
And if
but-
you just
but
don't-
these little kids, maybe sometimes they're like this.
Yeah.
and they just can't pick it up without breaking some points they already had.
Oh, okay, so Nick says that he was like, it's more of a ha-ha thing, but he said they got penalized for this at Nationals last year, pressing stop at the end of the game. What, maybe he needs to.
They got penalized here, at Sydney?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Clarify what they got penalized
Nick,
for.
if
He
you
could be
did,
talking
I
about the last thing.
apologize. That should not have happened.
Yeah. I always ruled that this way.
It could be he was talking about the last thing about getting back into base.
Yeah.
They got
Yeah.
penalized for bringing it back?
I don't know, we're clarifying now what they got penalized for.
Yeah.
Good, I need a little break anyway.
He said, my girls pressed stop without asking when it was over, slingshot. Shut down before a game and has been allowed for a while.
Yeah, I think it's been allowed for a while.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can shut it off, and Nick, sorry. We'll make it up for you this year. Okay, strand and strand.
Apparently Evan was the referee.
No, I was ruled this way.
Robot loses something that was transporting. That thing must be allowed to come to rest. Once it does, what do you do? So transporting. Transporting something? Oh, let's use the ball. It's transporting the ball. And you have to wait till it comes off. It stops. Okay, now that it's stopped, what do we do with that ball? So the robot has not been interrupted, but it loses that ball. Well, the answer with what you do with it depends on where it started. Is that correct, Evan?
Right?
So if that ball started in base,
No, I don't think it matters where it starts. So it doesn't, it doesn't make a difference where it starts. If you're driving along and you lose an object, there is no,
you're right.
so that's once it's transported. So when you're coming back into base,
That's a bad example. Okay, yes. Come back into base, and it falls like that. Okay, it falls right there. What do we do with that? Evan?
we take it.
Referee takes it. Okay?
Referees.
What if it drops it right there?
That's it's always really unfortunate when it does that. So that has to stay there.
Has to stay there, and that's when the kids want to move it because it might block the next run on the next mission.
Okay, so that clarifies, because Connor has that question. When you said leave it in place, you mean leave it on the field, it can't be removed.
Right.
It stays.
However, if it's straddling the line for the base, then you take it. And the third option, there's only three options. It gets
Yeah.
dropped there, it gets dropped straddling, or it gets dropped in the base. And if it's in the base completely, then you keep it. The team keeps it. Okay, transporting thing, field damage. Field damage, oh man, field damage. Some of these robots, they just go off course and they start riding up things and they start breaking things and they knock things over. What do you do with the mission models that get broken by the robot? Think of the answer. What do you think the answer is? Robot goes out there and it breaks something before the team picks it up or brings it back. What do you do with that mission model that's broken? Evan?
It stays as it is.
But what if the team wants to fix it? They want to go back and try it again. And they're like really nice little kids, and like 6 years old, they're cute. And they say, well, you guys want to try it one more time?
That's normally the time when I give, this is a really good opportunity to give them the, you have 3 rounds and you always take the maximum of your 3 rounds. So just think of this one as a practice, you can get a better score next time.
Good answer, good answer. Yeah, you have to leave it, the damage done. But here's another question that's not
There's a
so
wrinkle to
simple.
that. Yeah.
The robot goes out, and when they picked it up, they caused damage when they're bringing it back. So let's say it's the same damage caused in the last example, But this time the damage is caused by the robot after they interrupted it. And let's say they destroyed a score they had, make it even more complicated. What do you do now? The last example was clear. You leave it. But this time, do you leave it? Or do you reconstruct it? Because if they accidentally lose a piece or break a piece off the robot, they're allowed to pick that up and fix it. Are they allowed to do the same with the mission model piece on the field? Evan?
So this is another one of those cases where they still have to leave it. And even if there was something scored before and it's not scored anymore, they still have to leave it. So the reasoning behind that is, even if the mission is really simple and you could rebuild it that quickly, not all the mission models, especially this year, not all the mission models are going to be that way. And so you kind of have to make sure that when you make sort of that one ruling, that you're thinking about, oh, if I do this for this mission model, I'll have to do this for this other really complicated mission model. So
I think the thing we have to do is remind the teams constantly to calmly pick up the robot when they interrupt it. You can never remind them enough with that.
We haven't covered that part.
Oh, yeah. So this is just the, sometimes they might, let's say the robot's driving over this model here, and they happen to break it so that this gate doesn't exist anymore. Well, that'd make it really easy to drive over this bit. So to drive over here to score the points for that. Unfortunately, if they ever break the mission model in a way that makes it easier to do, then they can no longer get the points for that mission in that round. So after that point, they can no longer score the points for that specific mission.
Yeah, any damage done to a mission piece on the field, if that damage makes it easier to score points, the points are not allowed. Okay. Let's go on to the score sheet. So when the match is finished, and here's the score sheet. There's 15 matches, or 15 missions. After the match is over, 2 technicians, the 2 that were up here, are supposed to come up to you. But normally the whole team comes up around you. And the problem with that is they bump the table, and sometimes they can destroy what they had already accomplished. So you want to do your best to keep everybody else back, and only 2 kids up at the table, no parents, no coaches, just the 2 technicians. And they have the right to ask you questions, to question you. But keep in mind, you are on a timetable. You don't want to keep asking for questions, but they have the right to ask you questions. If you have a question you can't answer, that's when you go get the head referee. The head referee has one simple job, and that is to make decisions when you can't. Okay? Most of these are pretty simple. There's 15 missions. 9 of them are yes, no. And 6 of them are either numbers or circle a word. But it's a pretty simple thing, but it will take you a few matches to get you to go through it quickly. I would suggest you observe a few practice matches first, and then just score it for fun afterwards, just so you get the feel for it, so that your first time in a real match, you are experienced.
I have some other tips with that. So a lot of times when I'm filling these out, especially with some of the teams that aren't as advanced, one of the things that can be really good as you're going through is starting off with the missions that they did. So going through, and I'll kind of stand next to them and I'll say, awesome, you guys nailed this mission, you got your points for this one. And I'll say, awesome, you guys nailed this mission, you guys did really good. And then sort of as I'm talking to them and I might give them some tips, I'll mark down the rest of the sheet. But I try to start with the missions that I know they did, and I can talk through them with it and say, you guys are really good. Or maybe you guys are really close to getting the full points for this one. You were partially in. If you were able to scoot that in just a little bit farther, you get even more points for that. And that can be really encouraging for some teams.
Yeah, feel free to give them pointers between matches. And Evan said something really important, and that is build them up. Make them feel good about their successes. They might only achieve 2 missions, but you can make them feel good about those 2 missions. If you go through and you start saying, no, circle, no, circle, no, 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 no. These poor kids have spent weeks and months getting ready for this. They're not having fun anymore. You gotta do something else. And Evan's example is a perfect way to do it. Find your way to make them feel good about what they did achieve.
Hey Jack, can I take a picture of the score sheet?
I've never been asked that.
Oh, really?
'Cause I
Really?
I get a lot of students that, a lot of the competitors who want to take pictures of the score sheets.
I don't have an answer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Why not?
yeah. No, you get, no.
I thought it was a
teams don't
trick
do that.
question.
Okay,
No,
Colin
really.
has asked great advice, why do we do it, but I'm not really sure.
I think he said why we do it. This is why we do it, to build them up.
Never mind, I can't read.
You're reading the same thing?
Yep.
He can see it all.
Fred's on.
Sorry.
Hey, Jack,
Yes.
are we gonna have any 0 scores this year?
Oh, no way, we're in Australia. In
Yeah, what is
Australia.
it? Yeah, New Zealand might, but in Australia.
Okay, yeah, I can't speak for New Zealand, but I can speak for Australia. In Australia, no team walks away with a 0 up on that score board.
What's our minimum, man?
Our minimum is 10.
Now, this isn't a public thing. This isn't something that you tell the teams. This generally isn't something that you tell any.
We don't advertise it. Yes, good point, Evan. We
Yeah.
don't advertise this, it just shows up as 10.
And this is generally something that is just between the head referee and the scorekeeper.
If a team ever asks questions, why do I have 10 points? We should have 0, actually we should have minus 18. You say, hey,
That's what the score says. Awesome job.
come back and beat that 10. Come back, you can do better than 10. Something like that.
Right, and I guess I also just wanna say, at the upper end of the scale, like for the teams that are, doing really well, you never would add points there, right? It's only for those teams that really are struggling, and how disappointing would you be if you worked all year and you came back with a 0? Like, it just can't happen. But upper level, absolutely fair, absolutely. But lower level, do it right.
Okay, now, Evan, now we're gonna get to the mission models, the missions.
All right.
So we're gonna go in order from 1 to 15. Now, raise your hand if you've actually seen a table before. Okay, raise your hand if you've actually seen a robot attempt a mission. Okay. Well, if you haven't, you're gonna struggle a little bit keeping up, but you'll pick up real soon. The first one, so Evan, what are we trying to accomplish in the first one?
So the first one is called space travel. It lives over here in the map. This is the corner sort of adjacent to base. It'd be the north corner. And this one is, so the general idea is you're trying to get these carts to roll down and end up in that gray area down there. There are a couple of important things to remember about this one. The first one is that they can only, I guess the big one is that the cart must be independent by the time it reaches the first track connection.
So first track connection is right there. So, and what does independent mean? It means
I think there's
nothing,
actually a, oh, there we
nothing
go.
that can, whatever transport is there can no longer be in contact with it.
Yeah. The word independent means not in contact with any of your equipment.
Okay. And how far does it have to go? What if it fell off? Right there, what if it fell off? It counts.
Mhm.
So how far does it have to go?
It just has to be independent by the time it,
Crosses that point.
yeah. So you're looking for the keywords here are clearly rolling down the space travel ramp.
Okay. Okay, and the second one, solar panel array. The numbers kind of go from west to east. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it goes that direction. Number 2 is solar panel.
So this one should start straight up and down, and
As
then
opposed to,
either angled towards the field, so towards the them,
yep.
or away.
And are there 2 of those on the board?
So there'll be a second one. There are always 2 boards that are adjacent to each other.
I should say tables.
Tables, there are 2 tables. There'll be one here, and there's one that's across from base. So there's going to be another base sort of where Jack is standing over there.
which means that there's going to be another one of these, if you can imagine, that's going to be around the point of the weightlifting mission, or the endurance mission. Yeah, right about there. So, there's a bit of a chance for the teams to cooperate on this one. Now, you as the team on this field, you can't mess with the other team's solar panel. But before the match, you might get some teams that figure out they both want the solar panels to be one way or another, and they can work together to score some extra points there.
Wait a second. I think I can move both of them.
Can you?
Yeah. Is there any rule that says I can't?
Mick Lowen actually just asked that question. Are you allowed to pull the other team's solar array towards
Well,
you?
let me ask this question. Is there any rules, any information saying you can't? Remember, we like the kids to think outside the box. And if it doesn't say they can't, that means they can. I think if you read that, there's no rule saying you cannot.
Not here.
Move either
You're
one.
right.
That is Wollongong's reading as well.
There we are.
So that makes it more
You
interesting.
can move the other one.
So this is a real strategy. It's not a lot of difference in points, but
Read out the question that came in.
So, Navindran is asking, sorry, but what do we do if coaches of other teams start to dispute this no zero score practice? Example, coach of team 1 is asking why team 2 has 10 points when team 2 only achieved 0 points. We look at them and say, hey, gracious professionalism. Go ahead, take it.
and go speak to the head referee.
That's right,
Yeah.
because he's the dude.
I'm getting paid
The
the
head
big bucks,
referee's the boss.
and Mick, I think you're the head referee. Is Mick, you the head referee down in Melbourne?
Nick, yes.
Yeah, you're getting paid the big bucks down
Yeah,
there.
but I also want to say, as a referee or head ref, you never should say, oh, we have a minimum score. Oh, we give everybody 10 points, because that sort of defeats the purpose,
Yes.
right? This is something that we're sharing with all the head refs, because we just don't want kids to be discouraged, right? So if another coach comes up and says, oh, we're not sure, I think you say the same thing. Look, that's what came up on the score. I'm not exactly sure exactly what they scored. I've seen so many matches, or how would you handle it?
I think the gracious professionalism, I just say gracious professionalism and smile.
Yeah,
There
like
you
there's
go.
And don't explain, don't
Yeah.
offer an explanation.
Yeah.
Is that your idea? Gracious
Yeah,
professionalism?
but to be honest, I've never had that. I've never had that question. The thing is you get the teams who will be looking at those scores, and their coaches will be sort of ecstatic at having 10 points, and that's all that really matters in that case. I don't think I've ever had any coach come and say dispute it or complain about it. Yeah, it's a rule that sounds like it could create problems, but I don't think I've ever had a problem with this, or I haven't had anyone question it.
And I would not want to hear a coach repeating this to anyone. This really is information that's being shared just with you. If we start having coaches, saying, oh, well, everybody gets that, then there's no point. So please do not share that with coaches. It really is just something that we're doing to try to inspire kids, because that's what this program is about.
As a head referee, one of your roles is to network with everybody, coaches, the kids, the crowd. Get on everybody's side, have fun with everybody. And when people are having fun with you, they're less likely to bring up anything negative. So as long as you're having fun, the 10-point thing will never be brought up.
And Andrew has stated, he said, because this started with the solar panel references when you were talking about the solar panel and the Baitner.
Okay, so let's go back to that.
And he's saying that R16 prevents interference except as described in mission text. M02 talks about positions of both panels without a restriction and only touching yours, or without a restriction on only touching yours. Does this help? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, but it's good. All right, 3.
Number 3, okay, so Evan, number 3 is the 3D printing. I wonder if that's on purpose. Number 3 is 3D.
Okay, so the 3D printer lives here. This is the 3D printer. It should be loaded with a Lego brick 2x4 here, and you need to place a regolith sample in there. So of the samples, there are 4 types of samples. There are 2 gray ones.
So
These
wait a
are-
second, so how do they get these samples?
The robot will have to come out and get it
So
somehow.
they have to do this mission first.
They do. Now they can do that mission. They can bring those 4 back to base, and then they can place those on their robot or on a different
tool, they can move them once they're back in base, and then come out and try to drop it in here. Or some teams might be really, really good and pull these 4 off and then sort of immediately deliver it. But they can take it, bring these, let's say our robot comes out here and fetches all of our samples, and it's falling apart. And grab all these samples and it drives back to base, right? This robot can now, we definitely transported that all the way back. But this robot can now take these off, and maybe they have some other tool that they put on, and put this on their tool, and then drive back out.
Whoa, that's kind of cool.
I'll have to get some feedback.
So the purpose here is to drop that into here?
Yep.
What happens?
And then this here will demonstrate. So
Okay.
if Fred gets a cool camera angle. So this gets dropped into here, and this should pop out.
And where do you want that to fall?
I think it just needs to be out.
No.
No?
Completely
can
in the
be just
northeast
out.
planet area for
That'll
22
get you
points.
There we go. So the northeast planet area being this area back here, denoted by the orange line. Or I think that's.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's the orange line.
Yeah.
I think that's a challenge for the more experienced teams. Okay. 'Cause you still get points for just dropping it here. And the only difference between leaving it there and transporting it down there is 6 points. So the first year teams, if they got that much, or second year, third year, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the keyword is ejected. So it has to be ejected from the 3D printer. And then after that, where it's placed can score either 18 or 22. And then, yeah, so there are 3 different types of samples. I think this comes up more later, but you have these gray ones, which are the regular
Let's go
samples.
number 5. Let's do number 5 then.
Okay.
That's mission number
I
5.
got confused by this when I was reading through the rules the first time.
Really?
Okay, so number 5 begins. Is this correct? Which one's first, white or blue?
I forget.
White or blue comes first, I can't remember.
All 4 are in there, is the point.
All 4, but gray is first and last. Okay, that's,
They get an order. Fred.
okay, we're doing number 5, we skipped 4.
I'm doing number 5. Okay, are you doing number 5?
So you are.
I'm doing number
Yes.
5. Okay. So technically speaking, move all 4 core samples so they're no longer touching the axle that held them in the core sample.
So the axle is, what, the orange or just the orange or the black?
The black. So that's the axle that holds them in at the moment. You then have the regular samples, which are these gray ones. You have the gas sample, which is this white one, and you have the water sample, which is the blue one. And they all have sort of different places that you take them to score. They work on different missions.
So we're just trying to move them all the way off?
But as long as they're not touching this axle, so this axle that goes out to here, this one, then that is the 16 points for the first piece of that mission.
What happens if only 3 get knocked off?
And they don't do that mission.
So we look at number 5, just check the score sheet. All 4, it says all 4. Okay, so all 4 have to be off.
Okay, you gonna go back to mission 4 then?
Okay, mission 4, crater crossing.
So crater crossing, that's this mission here. This is the crater. And we need all weight-bearing features of the crossing equipment to must cross completely between the towers, and it must go from east to west.
So the towers are here and here. This is,
Where's the compass on this here?
that's north.
Yeah, this way's north. I'm
That's
trying to-
west.
Normally there's a compass on the map somewhere.
Yeah, I don't see one this
I think
way.
you just know it. That's
But it's aligned with the first LEGO League and all the other logos.
So that's west.
Yeah.
It must go from east to west. So come over here. And it must drive up over. And completely cross. So what if it stopped right there? There. So that's completely crossed. Now, I'm interested that term, it says weight bearing. Why is that term weight bearing in there?
So I imagine you might get some teams that have, maybe they have some piece of their robot that goes over
over the edge for some reason. So yeah, bang on your highlighter. You might have this piece that sticks out here that goes over. This feature is not weight bearing. So the idea is that you can drive over, and even though this is sort of sticking out from between the towers, the weight bearing features of the robot still are between the towers the whole time. So it's okay.
I think what it refers to is if it had a sling of some sort, it could throw something over it.
Oh yeah, that too.
So we read the instructions for the
That's
rules.
another.
So Mick Lone referenced the discussion, asking if the crossing equipment needs to push down the fence, or if you can push down the fence separately and then throw something over.
I would say you can push down the fence separately. I don't think it says anywhere that those two need to be coupled, as long as.
So what are the scoring
from east to
requirements?
west. So you should be, as the ref, watching it and keeping track of whether they move from east to west. It doesn't say, it just says that the.
I think this is the perfect time to mention, the only information that matters begins here. That doesn't matter over there. This information below, technically speaking, matters. And all it says is, all weight-bearing features, let's say this is the weight-bearing feature, because it has weight to it, of the crossing equipment, must cross completely between the towers. If it got thrown, does that achieve the instructions? Crossing must be from east to west and make it completely past the flattened. So in this case, it
Passing the
doesn't
gate.
count. As Mick said, they must first somehow lower that. They could have done it earlier from either side, and then they can throw it. Now, I think that's gonna be very rare to see, but that's a possibility, so I just wanna,
Well, they can't
So-
put that over
why?
because
Uh,
the weight bearing features of the robot.
No. It doesn't
No,
say
it
of
doesn't
the
say
robot.
It says
It says the
weight-bearing
crossing
features
equipment.
of the crossing equipment.
Anything that crosses, everything weight bearing has to cross.
That is interesting.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good one.
I will say that one more point to the flattened gate thing. It has to cross from east to west over the flattened gate. The
Over
gate
the
can't be flattened later.
Right.
It has to be flat when it crosses.
Can they flatten the gate from either direction?
Doesn't say anything about that, so yeah.
That's right. They can flatten it like when they're over here, just pull it down, yeah. But the weight-bearing object must cross from the east side.
Crossing equipment.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's good, it's good. Okay, now number 6. Number 6.
Well, this is
That, any questions on that one? If you do, just write them. Number 6, Evan, we're going to the space station module.
Okay, so I can remember some of these don't start in, some of these start in base, and I think it's this one starts in base, right?
Okay, the cone, where's the cone? The cone starts here. The tube, where's the tube?
That's that one.
Tube starts in base.
The tube starts in base.
Tube starts in base.
I can get it lost.
Okay, sorry. And the dock must start on the south side. Is that right?
This will be where the field setup goes.
I don't have this memorized. The
That's the
docking
challenge updates, that's the
starts.
I think I broke this.
I'll pull up the.
Okay, give us
field
one
setup
second.
guide.
And you're saying cone starts on the other side, I don't know what that means.
The cone starts on the other side, but the dock is correct. Is a word from Andrew.
That sounds, I can believe that.
Okay.
And then this starts here.
And what's this guy's name? This guy has a name.
It's
Think of the guy
Gerhard.
from,
Gerhard.
yeah, I wonder why it's Gerhard. Lego. Okay, Gerhard.
Gerhard Stranded.
Okay, stranded. So what are we trying to do, Evan?
So we are, mission 6, technically speaking, inserted modules must not be touching anything except for the habitation hub. So
And by the way,
that's-
this is the habitation hub.
So the thing to think about there is that if a team comes up and inserts the cone module, for example, or no, inserts the module that's in base, let's say they insert that, they can't be holding that with their robot. So once that's been inserted, they can't hold it in with their robot. It needs to sort of stay in all on its own. Can't be touching anything except for the habitation hub. Next, you can move the cone module completely into base. That's the one that's on the east side.
East side, okay.
You can insert the tube module into the habitation hub port west side. So that'll be the one towards base. Wait, no. This side. Wait.
Wait.
No,
Which is-
west.
which way
This is west side. That's what you were just talking about. The tube
Okay,
module.
perfect.
Yeah.
I'm looking upside down at the field here. And transfer or insert the dock module into the habitation hub port east side.
So let's take this one out and move it over to there.
Yep.
That's a tricky one.
If you do that, you're gonna have a lot of points.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. That's a tough one, okay? But it's pretty simple in terms of understanding. Let's move on to number 8, aerobic exercise.
We didn't do 7.
What?
Gotta do 7. Gerhard, speaks of
Sorry.
emergency.
Sorry.
So Gerhard is our little astronaut here. Move Gerhard so his body is inserted at least partially into the habitation hub's
Actually,
airlock chamber.
Can we just quickly jump back? We had a question asking if this can be touching a part of the robot that has been strategically abandoned.
No, because in that case, it must not be touching anything except for the habitation hub. So that would count as something other than the habitation hub, and so therefore it doesn't count.
And there's another question, which is checking for mission 4. It must be equipment that crosses. They couldn't cross with one of the meteoroids from mission 14?
I don't think
Interesting
so,
point.
Because,
Going back to the definition of equipment.
yeah, the definition of equipment is something
Oh,
that
that's
you bring to the
important.
field.
Anything brought to the table.
Hmm.
Whoever brought that up is correct.
Connor Oswald.
Connor,
Hmm.
Yeah.
thank you. Crossing equipment must be equipment brought to the table for the purpose of completing a mission.
Mhm.
It cannot be something already here. They cannot pick this up and throw this. Good point. Thanks, Connor.
So we're trying to move back to mission 7. We're trying to move Gerhard, our astronaut, into this area up here, at least partially in. So if Gerhard is partially in like this case, then
He's partially in.
yeah,
That's a
then
no.
he's
But what
18
if?
points.
What if it's like this?
And-
What if it's like this?
That's no good.
Why?
Because you're looking only at
The
the
loop.
word body.
Okay,
So all parts except for the loop.
okay, so a part of the body or backpack, I
Or,
imagine.
so yeah, body counts as anything on this model except for that gray loop coming up the top.
Okay.
So in this case, Gerhard is fully inside the airlock chamber.
Good stuff. Okay, now we can go to the aerobic exercise.
Aerobic exercise. So
Yes.
it's over here.
Good round.
Number 8. So what are we trying to achieve there, Evan?
So here we're advancing the exercise missions pointer along its dials. This being its dial. You're
So we have to start with this pushed as far over as you can, well, right there, and this as far down as possible. Now, I don't know how to push, is that down maximum, Evan?
That's down, yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So
that's how
it's
you start.
So you need to move the machine's pointer along its dial by moving one or both of the handle assemblies.
So you can't push it like this.
You can't push it like that.
Can't push it like that. So the way you do those is you can, as you push these down, you can move it over. And they can push one or the other. So you can actually do kind of a cool going back and forth to get it a bit quicker. But there's a kind of interesting thing to point out here. So get the pointer tip completely in the orange or partly covering either the orange end borders or completely in the gray or partly covering either the gray end borders. The thing I wanted to point out here is that this is orange, and this is orange all the way over to the point where you hit this. This is still orange
As long as
because
it's touching a little bit of the highest.
including the border. So the border counts as orange here, but as soon as you go past here, this is white. And that's the same way on the other side. So the white one is kind of special here in the fact that it gets, so like this is gray at this point. That isn't white.
Okay.
And then this is white.
Yep.
So, can I do that? Push it from the bottom? Not on this mission, clearly it broke, but. Do I have to use the orange handles?
I would say that's part of the handle assembly, personally. So I would say
Mick Lone agrees.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Okay.
Mission 9, which is on the other side. So it's this one here, strength exercise. So you just need to lift the strength bar so the tooth strip fourth hole comes at least partly into view. So we're lifting the strength bar, this orange bar, and we need to go up to the point where
So,
the fourth hole is partially in view. So that being the fourth hole, the very bottom one. So you can go all the way down to probably there, and that's still scored because you can see it's partially in view.
Now, I understand that it's pretty hard to lift this. And if you watch the mat gets lifted with it. Look at that. And I'm applying quite a bit of force to this to lift it up. Look at that mat come. So can I just tape this down? Can I tape this down during the match?
No.
No.
So that's one of the things that, for the people who are setting up the fields, no, you can't tape the fields down, and in the vast majority of the time, you don't want to tape any part of the field down for that reason. At that point, it's not standard. Every so often, we need to tape, if you have a corner of a mat that's curling up or isn't staying down, every so often, you need to tape something like that. But you want to try your best to not affect the way that either the mission models or the field works.
I think the idea for number 9, the strength exercise, is to give a really big challenge to the more experienced teams. The robot has to be able to push down on that mat at the same time pulling up.
And you'll find it's a lot easier when you do have a robot that's sitting here. When you have your actual robot sitting here and it's doing this sort of number, it will generally play nicer. Yes, in general.
But the weight's got to be close to the machine.
But yeah, in general, you shouldn't tape the mats down. So a tip I would, where we generally set the mats up the night before if we can, and just let them sit flat. A lot of times that helps with the mats sort of curling up.
Yeah, normally more than one day.
Normally, yeah, if you can get
More like a week.
if you can get a week of the mats just sitting flat somewhere in an office or on the floor where they're not going to get messed with, the longer they're flat, the better chance you have having nice flat mats for the competition.
And
don't
not
fold the
having
mats.
this.
Don't fold the mats. Okay.
Yes. Okay, number 10, food production. This is number 10 right here. And this is called the food growth chamber. Evan, what are we trying to do with that food growth chamber?
So just to your point, Evan, Mick says step 5 in the field map placement, you can tape the east and west sides with a small piece of tape.
Yeah.
But be very careful, read the restrictions. You have to have enough space on the table itself to tape to. You're not meant to tape on the wall itself.
So
So you have to have a pretty big gap to do that. It's a tough one. But yes, you're right.
Okay, so food production. There are 3 colors, or 3 sort of colored pieces in here. It starts with tan, and then you go forward and it'll go to brown, forward again goes green, and goes back to tan. So the scoring condition here is spin the food growth chamber so the gray weight is dropped after the green, but before the tan by moving the push bar. So in other words, by moving this bar here, by interacting with this bar, you need to make it so that the green,
That was the weight dropping, yep.
just like that. And this is one of those that you can kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, I think. This might be a bit close, but you're in general looking for the gray weight to have dropped and the brown not to have come all the way up.
Also, if you go back to mission number 5, I believe if you put this, look at mission number 5, it says, place the water core sample so it is supported only by the food growth chamber. So this came from the axle. The robot would have to take it over to here and somehow place it up here, somewhere, and still be able to do this. Okay? So that's just an extra score.
And then there's some things you can do with the gas sample as well, being the white one. So you can move it either into touching the mat and completely within the lander's target circle, being this circle over here, or place the gas core sample completely in base. Or in base. What's wrong with those?
Okay. Okay, now we're getting there. Number 11, escape velocity.
Love this
Does
one.
anybody know the escape velocity required to leave Earth? What is it?
I think it's 8 kilometers per second, I think. I forget.
I think it's 26,000 miles per hour. I don't know.
That seems really specific to guess.
Who says I was guessing?
So we're looking now at mission 11, escape velocity. So get the spacecraft to go so fast and high that it stays up by pressing or hitting the strike pad.
That's a failure.
You'll notice that a lot of the things the robots should be interacting with are orange. Now this is actually quite difficult.
Whoa.
I've seen, like, we've worked with teams that can do it, but it's actually more difficult than you'd expect it to be.
So that's a yes or no. It's 24 points or 0 points.
So it's either staying up or it's not.
Okay, that's pretty simple. Let's move on to number 12, satellite orbits.
Number 12 satellite, this is also, I can't remember which one of these started in base and which one of these don't. We didn't have time to pull up the field setup guide.
Okay,
So I have two sitting here. I still think that's part of the mission. I still
You
think,
think it's what?
I still think that lives in something. But I'm not-
Don't worry about it.
Anyways, this is, I would refer to the field setup guide at this point to figure out which one of these starts in base, but I'm hoping one of you attentive listeners is gonna.
Andrew, guaranteed.
Here we go,
Andrew
Andrew.
will have it. Andrew's
Oh,
got
Mick
it.
might. Mick's pretty good.
Yeah, which one of these start in base and where does the other one start?
Also, Colin said that the green to brown ruling is probably going to create hours of community debate amongst the referees.
Yeah, that one's.
Oh, can I address that? That's a very good point. If you get to any mission where there's a disagreement and it's taking time to
Blue one
settle
starts
it,
on field.
you're slowing down the next matches. And so what I want you to do is score everything else,
The blue one
Yeah.
starts on the field.
Yeah, fair enough.
score everything you can, and then move that last discussion off the table. Once you are very clear what the table looks like, move the discussion off table, let the table reset or start so we get another match going.
And those two are in base.
Please do not stay at the table for 5 or 10 minutes discussing one point. Okay.
That one's in base.
Yeah, other two
so
are base.
base.
Awesome. Okay, let's how that's set.
Thanks, everybody. That was thanks to Oladilla, I think that was Andrew,
Yep.
Nick Lown, and Connor Oswald. Okay, so
You guys are paying attention. Okay, so move any part of a satellite on or above the area between the two lines of outer orbit. So over here, on or between the two lines of the outer orbit, to be those two that Jack's pointing at. So
Move
for-
it on or between or above, on or above the area.
So, not
That's what that is. This is missing its base.
above.
On or above. Oh.
Additionally, if
On
you
or
have
above.
one like this, I think this is meant to have a base that you don't have. But if you this one that has these.
Yeah,
sort of
they should all have the
pieces,
white platform on loop.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
should have a white platform as well. But anyways, how
Is
do you
that-
score that?
I think that's a score because part of it is touching on.
Because some part of the satellite is on or above the area between the two lines. So yes,
So
that's
that's
depicted in one of the pictures on the.
What about that one?
Ooh, I like that. Put right over the top.
Top view.
That one you have to get right over the top and look. Yeah, I think that's a score. Now,
I
what
agree.
about this? It gets tipped over.
I'm giving it the thumbs up, Jack.
Thumbs up. Yep, that still counts. Okay, on or above. What if the robot? What if the robot is carrying it? And it drives and stops. Just perfect right there. That's above.
Good view?
Okay, good, good.
Okay.
Can the robot stop there? Yeah, sure can. We've got 2 left.
I have an interesting question, but we'll talk about it later.
What?
I have an interesting question, but we'll talk about it later. Okay, let's finish with the mission.
Okay, observatories.
Mission 13,
Jeez.
observatory. So that one lives over here in the corner. So get the pointer to completely in the orange or partly covering either of the orange end borders. So this is the same sort of deal as the orange, gray, and white in this mission over here. So the borders go either with gray, like in this case, if I can get there, like in this case, or with orange in this case. So the borders are default to the outer ones, not to white.
And here, they don't have anything specific they need to interact with. It's just sort of an end scoring condition. You're looking at the point at the end of the match and seeing where it lies.
So basically, it's 20 points, 18, 16. Yeah.
Okay.
No, number 14.
Meteoroid deflection. I find this one quite interesting.
Yes.
Let's move some of the stuff out of the way here. So this lives over here. Okay. So
There's
there are
2 points, this and that line.
There are 2 meteoroids. There's one that starts in base, and there's one that lives on the field. It's meant to live in. There's a rim of a Lego tire that's meant to sit there, but we couldn't find it. So there's meant to be the rim of one of the Lego tires that sits there and it sits on. That's the Lego tire. So send meteoroids over the free line to touch the mat in the meteoroid catcher. So let's define some things here, some points. So the first one's the free line. Jack's pointing at that one now. So that runs between the habitat and sort of the strength exercises over here. And the meteoroid catcher. Can you show us the meteoroid catcher, Jack? It's a meteoroid catcher. So it needs to touch the mat in the meteoroid catcher. So that's the first bit. The second bit, the meteoroids must be released while they are clearly and completely west of the free line. West being that way. While between hit, release, and scoring position, the meteoroid must be clearly independent. So in other words, between the point at which it's hit or released, so maybe the robot kicks it, or maybe the robot rolls it, between that point and the meteoroid catcher must be independent. So the idea here is that, let's say we have our robot here, and it releases the ball on the west side of the free line, but has some guides that run farther out. Even though they've already released it, that ball isn't independent past the free line. So they shouldn't, the ball should be completely independent once it's past the free line.
What if, you threw it here?
Yeah.
What if they release it behind the line, but it hits this and then bounces in?
I'd call it independent. Yeah.
It's not being guided.
No. So yeah, the idea of that rule isn't that you hit another mission model and it barely goes in, but it wasn't independent the whole time. It's mainly to make sure that teams aren't setting up extra guides or rails that are past the free line.
Colin says good clarification.
Sorry?
Colin says good clarification.
Okay.
So here's a question for you.
Yeah, so there's an interesting question here that goes along with this one.
Can I launch it from over here? If I actually launch it.
I would say...
Does this line extrapolate to the end, or do you have to cross the line?
That line is not infinite.
Now, here's a question. An interesting question that we were pondering before you guys all got here. Can a team, if a meteoroid is in base, can a team by hand roll a ball into the meteoroid catcher or flick a ball? So as long as they roll it, it goes over the free line and it independently lands.
Put some English on it. A spin? How they gonna do that?
Bounce it off the food thing?
So if a team does that, does it count? Now I've read through, because this is the first thing I thought of when I saw this, and I can't find a reason why you can't. But I kind of am interested to see if you guys find some other reason. I wanted to pose it because this is one I genuinely don't know. This isn't one of those trick questions that Jack and I
was gonna
ask
try
each
it.
other. I think it's
If
possible.
any team plans to do this, I can just see this guy spend like 100 hours, all he's doing every practice
If anyone can do it, you can.
is that. If they can do that, I'm gonna get up and do my dance. And I'm gonna say, yeah, you scored. I think you're right, there's no rule that says that,
Do you get?
I don't know.
Does anyone disagree in the comments?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Marvin said, I have a team that attempted to slingshot it from base.
Yep, I think that's possible as well.
I would love to see that.
Andrew's saying.
DO2.
DO2.
DO2, all right.
DO2, okay, Andrew, let's look at DO2. DO2 says mission. A mission is an opportunity for the robot. Oh, okay, for the robot to earn points. Okay.
Oh,
Andrew,
There it is.
aha.
Isaac taught you well.
Now look at the other way around.
A mission is an opportunity for the robot. I've read that 100 times. I never sunk in.
On the other hand, if your robot is in base and had a slingshot,
Which is what Nolan was saying.
yeah,
Hmm.
so then the robot's doing the scoring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome, so meter deflection. Okay. Mission 15, lander touchdown. So that is over in the corner here. Move the lander, being this piece. Put the meteor right there. This is the lander. It has two pieces that sort of just lightly slot together. So move the lander to be intact. So in other words, intact, like this, touching the map and completely within its target circle. Remembering that the border counts towards the target circle, so that is still completely within. 22 points. Or move the lander to be intact, so still intact, touching the map and completely in the northwest planet.
Northeast.
Northeast planet area. Like that. Again, the border counting is the northeast planet area. Or move both parts of the lander completely in base. So at this point they can be apart, and they're both completely in base.
What if they have one here and one here? Wait, well, there's still scores, isn't it?
Nope.
Nope.
That is not
Has to be
intact.
Intact.
Oh, it's not intact.
Mhm.
Okay.
Now here's a curious thing. Do you have to use this bar to release the lander? I don't think so.
What does it say in technically
Okay, start
speaking?
from the beginning, put it back.
Okay, start from the beginning. So it normally lives. I go like this, and then this comes in. It lives like not like that,
Okay,
but like this.
okay. So like if they're slingshotting this, and they hit it, no, seriously, if they slingshot this and they hit it,
Well, I think they just grab it.
what?
I think they just grab it.
So the robot could just come and grab it, keep it intact, and bring it down?
I think so.
Okay, does anybody
He
see a
said.
reason in the rules that says you can't do that? Technically speaking, move the lander, doesn't say how, to be intact, touching the mat.
Are you giving me the thumbs up or the thumbs down, Winona?
Colin says chaos theory. No, I'm right. Chaos theory. Colin, I don't know.
But I
And
think-
Wollongong says no rules
Yes
saying
or no?
Wollongong says no rules saying you have to use the
Chaos theory is
handle.
Right, so this is another one of those where you only look at what's in this technically speaking bit in terms of what they scored for the mission. So the scoring conditions are that it's intact, touching the mat, and completely in its target circle. That doesn't mention how it gets there.
Now keep in mind that one thing that FIRST wants to encourage is students, team members looking beyond the norm. We want them to think outside the box. So we actually want them to find loopholes. Okay? Teachers at school don't want you to find loopholes. We want them to look for loopholes.
So I want to bring up something that was just mentioned in the comments. The 12 inches at launch rule might make it might make it so it can't pick up the model without expanding upwards.
It can go past 12 inches after launch.
We never mentioned that though.
Okay, so the 12 inches only talks about at launch.
The first
So-
launch or every launch?
Every launch. So once after the robot's been launched,
It can do underhand.
it can extend past that 12 inches.
So if it went underhand, it would work. Overhand, it wouldn't work.
So one of the reasons this was put in place is there were some robots in past years that had very, very tall structures that would kind of fall down. So like you could have your robot sit in base and it could do the into orbit, the escape velocity into orbit. mission. That was sort of a rule pertaining to that specific. Yeah, once the robot's launched, it can be taller than 12 inches.
Okay, we're pretty much,
And then past that, it's just interrupting penalties. One thing Fred had pointed out is that upon the penalty, you put one penalty disc in the southeast triangle. If the penalty disc comes off the triangle, it is simply returned, no effect on the score. So in other words, if that's knocked out for some reason,
if what?
if it's knocked out for some reason, the referee just returns it.
Okay, question from Mick Lone. On the penalties, if a team asks you to store them in a different place as their robot will use the bottom corner, would we allow it?
We have to be consistent with everybody, we can't make exceptions. Leave them there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is it's pretty clear that they're going in the triangle.
So the team shouldn't use that corner.
Yeah.
Or shouldn't get penalties.
Or okay.
Make that clear, these don't sit here to begin with. They sit somewhere else, in your pocket or on top of the rail. You only put them in there once they interrupt the robot. Okay, so it starts empty. Okay, any questions, you guys?
I'm trying to think of the one that we talk about later.
Yeah, you said you had an interesting question for us. What happened to that?
Wait, what mission was that on?
Okay, while they're trying to figure this
Were we
out.
talking about the land
I
right?
can't stress enough the
No.
importance of making the event fun. Music, dancing, being silly. Mick, you have like the best hat. And everybody, if you could, wear a hat, wear a shirt. Most referees might just wear the pinstripes, but as the head referee, you can do anything you want, but make it fun.
Yeah, and so Peter Kellett now has a Spotify playlist for FLL that makes it super easy. It is called PK's FLL list. Let me look it up. Hang on, I'll get right back to you on that. But it makes it really easy to have good music that's all clean and wonderful.
I remember that.
We have a question.
I have a question.
So Connor says, as the first round is super important, what should we do if the team has a rule misunderstanding that would be really bad for their match? Example, not realizing that they can't have any part of the robot overhanging out of the base. Should we be slightly lenient? As if this happened, they wouldn't be allowed to do any useful runs and would look bad for the design judges. Well, that's just
That's a
the
good
way the cookie crumbles.
That's a great
right?
question. That's a great question. I was watching a video before I came in tonight. Winona sent us an email with a whole bunch of list of things to look at. The first three, I think, were videos. In the second and third video, this computerized voice explains benefit of the doubt. And it goes beyond what the rules say. Verbally, what was said in there was, if the team had a misunderstanding, they honestly misunderstood a rule, and they came to the table in that first round, and exactly what you're talking about happened, what would you do? The computerized voice suggests you can give them a benefit of the doubt for that first round, and then afterwards tell them what they need to do before the second round. If you believe it was a true misunderstanding and not a strategic move. And first-year team, I'm sure it would be a misunderstanding. So I would say, whose question was that?
It's Connor's.
Connor, I would say, let them run that match.
That one's really
Well-
tricky, Jack, because what if it was a misunderstanding, understood,
That's not high score.
right? But then they have the high score in round one. I'm not feeling like, you want to encourage them, but that's a tricky one for me.
Also,
So-
Connor's asking in relation to the robot, his specific question about that is it would look bad to the robot design judges, and that's part of their robot design judging session. So
That's what I'm noticing. I would answer this question differently this year than I would have all other years
Yeah.
prior.
So,
In terms of the referee would, or the judge would know they haven't
Andrew
followed
said
the
what you
rules.
said.
Yeah.
He said what Luann said.
Yeah.
So they would obviously score low for the judge. The judge has a different decision to make than the referee.
so here's a question.
It's up to you guys. It's up to you. It's your interpretation. I think if it's obviously real far over and it gives them a strong advantage, you can't count it. But if it's just a very innocent mistake, very small, that gives them no strategic advantage, I'd let them run it. It's your call to see if that error gave them a strategic advantage.
What were you going to say?
I'm trying to think whether, so in my head, I almost want to say you you tell them this is outside the rules, but we understand you want to be judged. How about you run this mission, we won't count if you complete it. But now I'm thinking, they could affect other missions. They could, how do you keep track of which ones that they did during the one that didn't count, and the other ones that do count?
Well, remember as well, the question was something fundamental, like if their robot doesn't fit in base at the start, they can't do any missions.
Right. So I'm wondering whether you say for that first round, they can run the robot, but we don't give them the score for the missions.
I don't think it's black and white. If it's that much out of base or it's that much out of base, those are two different answers. There's gotta be somewhere in between where it's a gray area. It comes down to the benefit of the doubt. I don't wanna make this black and white. Because that much off and this much off are two different answers. And once you start saying that any of just being outside is a violation with no points, that team that comes up their first time, and there's just that much outside of it, no, come on. Head referee, you make the call at your tournament.
Okay, I have an interesting question.
Oh,
Wanna hear your interesting
let me
question?
ask you that. When you get to the nationals, we will not allow that.
When you get to states,
State, we will
we
not
will
allow
not allow
that. Sorry.
that at all.
Okay, I have an interesting one. So I have my robot. My robot has driven, so, okay, my robot came out of base, we're doing a 180 here, and drops the next. Calmly. I kind of grab the mission and attempt to put it back together. Okay, so let's say this is over here somewhere. More of that later. So let's say my robot turns and starts driving out this way. I'm the technician. It's driving, it gets to here, I hit stop, and I end the match. And I say, that's all I'm doing, referee. That's my last match. That's my last mission.
Yeah. What? Oh, it's still moving.
So,
So in other
Yeah.
words, it was moving.
That was strategic.
That was strategic
strategic interruption.
at the very end. So let's look at the ruling again.
I think,
I can't remember what the missions were.
Oladala says, doesn't say you can't.
I don't know how graciously professional that is.
See, I think that'd be creative. But,
I mean, by the reading of the rules, if you don't intend to relaunch it, that
you
interruption
don't
doesn't
intend
give
to
you a penalty.
relaunch, You may shut down the robot and leave it in place.
So the answer is yes, they can.
So does that mean if you don't intend to relaunch, all the rules about what you do with the
Oh.
mission models don't apply?
No, that isn't true. Okay, let me tell you why that's not true. If you stop, that counts as an interruption.
Mhm.
So even though you don't get the penalty, you probably, I think you still apply to the transporting rules. The transporting being the thing that maybe did come from base or did not come from base. I think those rules still apply. So I think you were transporting that, you interrupted your robot. You can leave it there, but that was an item you were transporting.
I need to speak to Isaac.
Yeah, I was thinking about that
I
when we were
need
looking
to
at
think that one through.
It's a good one.
So you're saying if they transport it and they strategically turn it off at that point, no penalty, because they can turn it off, but they take this back to base.
Because it was interrupted.
because it was interrupted.
If it stops of its own accord, good for it.
Yeah,
But if you interrupt it,
I think
Do you
that was
take the mission
item you
model?
were
Because the
transporting.
moment they touch it, it's interrupted, and it hasn't been turned off yet, so the game hasn't ended yet. I think you're right, that goes back to base.
Yeah,
but you can leave the robot there if you feel like it.
yeah,
Oh, give us feedback, what do you guys think?
that's what I.
Because the rules say you can leave the robot there,
But
but it doesn't mention the mission models.
I think the mission model was being transported, and it was an interruption.
so,
And so generally, at the end of if you are transporting a mission model, generally one of two things happen when you interrupt the robot. Either it comes back to base with the team, or it goes to the head referee, or the referee, sorry, it goes to the referee on the table. And I think that'd still be the case here.
anybody have a solid answer?
Do you have any comment?
Huh?
Does anybody have an answer?
So Aaron has just said, the robot must not move, so it depends where the mission model is at the instant of interruption, question mark?
Right, so we're saying that, let's say that a team is able to time it really well, and they interrupt the robot, they press the stop, the end program button on UV3, right when this mission model,
Is it a
so the
scoring
satellite is above the outer orbit. So in other words, it's in a scoring position. So, you know, if the robot were to stop here by itself, and there was no interrupt, it'd definitely be scored. It would definitely be scored. So then the question there is, if it's interrupted, is that model that's being transported?
Connor says by that reading of the rules, they still get a penalty.
No, I don't think there's a penalty, Connor. I think that they're allowed to turn it off and not touch it again, and that ends their game. That is a rule. Which number is that?
Andrew says,
Oh,
and
14.
I was checking with the brains trust.
He's checking with- Just so you guys know, every year I go down, I speak to Isaac, but it was like over a month ago, so I forgot a lot. And
Oh,
Isaac
some
is
minor
brain
changes.
trust.
Evidently,
So
it's
Nick
mentioned.
Brown said it's not an actual RXX, but it does, what does that mean?
It's not an actual rule number, but in the changes 2018, it says if you interrupt the robot while it's transporting something it took from base during the most recent launch, you can now keep that object.
You
And it's
can?
okay to shut off the robot and leave it in place without penalty if it's done with intended missions.
The curious thing is what they define as keep that object.
But Aaron has pointed out Rule 14.
That's the one we were looking at. Yeah,
Rule 14?
Yeah.
that's the interruption.
So yeah.
is Connor.
The curious bit is whether when you say they keep it, generally in the context of like sort of the rest of the manual, when you say they keep it, that means it's in their hands. That's the general sort of reading of that, is when it says they keep it, it's in their hands. So that's sort of the way it happens whenever there's another interruption.
But now we have to define what keep it means. Keep it there? Or keep it back in base? Oh, that's why it's fun being a ref.
Looks like Jack's gonna do some soul searching on this.
So, we'll have to, we'll make it one of those Jack judgments in a couple days. So, I'm not gonna answer that question right now.
Yeah,
Good
and please
question.
remind I've told it before, but remind, okay. So all of the referees, it would be a really good idea, there should be a link to Jack's judgments, which is on that FLL landing page, but I'll also send it out to you. You should subscribe to that Google group, because as the season goes by, some of the rules and things change. Well, they don't really change, but the clarifications happen. There is a sheet up there, Jack, you might want to show them. It's the challenge guide updates. It's the updates.
So those are the ones released officially from first?
Yep, they're officially from first, and they get updated all along, so you should be checking those regularly. And then the other thing is to definitely join Jack's Judgments Online, so that's kind of helmed by Project Bucephalus. But you should definitely join it, and then you'll be up to date with everything that Jack calls. And this could change as the season goes. So we might start at Macquarie for the Sydney Regional, which is like the first weekend, and something may happen, and Jack may go, oh, okay. Because once we see the robots run, and we're going to get a lot more clarity on things as they go. So that's why it's important to be caught up with him. That's his forum. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good job, there you go.
yeah, I'm gonna sit down like you.
A roll.
Oh, by the way, stay tuned because I have a new dream, a big new dream. I want to dance at the national tournament to one of Winona's songs.
Oh, so we just got a question. How would you deal with a team breaking a hard and fast rule before you have time to stop them? For instance, resetting a mission by hand. So before you have time to stop them, they reset it. What do you do?
It's like they just reach out real fast and put that back.
Mm-hmm.
What I would do is I'd put that back to wherever they took it from and say, you can't touch anything outside base.
So what about the situation, for instance, where, say, they pull all the core samples off the axle, and they're all kind of scattered around, and the kid quickly puts them back on for whatever reason.
Well, I think a better one, one
I
that you'll see very
I just try
often.
to put it back in the closest position to where it was before they touched. It won't be exact, but you have to do something.
And do they get a penalty for that?
No,
If they
there's
touch
no
it?
penalty. It's not a touch penalty.
Mhm.
It's a warning, and if they do it a second time, it could be a gracious professionalism, no.
I was gonna touch really quickly on the 3 robot game updates that are out at the moment. So the first one is Meteoroid Catcher Shape. These are all within that challenge, or the challenge updates.
Can I just quickly throw in a question before you do that?
Yeah, sure.
Are teams allowed to bring their own tables, storage containers for outside base?
Yeah, you'll find that that's something that happens fairly often, is teams will bring something extra.
Would you ask it again, same question?
Are teams allowed to bring their own table, cart, trolley, whatever to the table?
It's tough, and here's why it's tough, because the size might not fit the venue. Some venues have lots of space, and sure, it would be good, but some venues don't have as much space, and it's not a good thing. So, man,
And you generally
it's
call
gotta
it-
be a judgment call.
I am so
By the head referee.
glad that you are the head referee and I'm not.
Yeah, I think,
Hey Jack, what we told teams in the past
yeah,
is that you can try, but we can't guarantee there'll be space there.
that's
So
the answer.
you'll find that some tournaments there is space there, and teams might bring some extra stuff, but we kind of say we can't guarantee that there's going to be extra space for your carts, your trolleys, your boxes, your containers at the field. So we can't guarantee it, but there are some tournaments where you might have space around the field.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, in thinking about it, and this is probably a little bit of just what I've seen for the last few months or the last year, there are some countries out there that kids are literally bringing parts in 2 or 3 Pelican cases that are almost the size of this table. And I think that is not the way that FLL should be going, because I think it makes it completely unfair for those teams that are not well funded. So my gut is kind of saying that we should discourage allowing teams to do that. They should be able to carry in what they've got and use the space that they're given. But I wouldn't absolutely say no, because I want kids to be creative. But at the same time, I see other countries headed in a direction that scares me a little bit.
And I would add to that it is noticeable only, and I'll say it from a junior First Lego League perspective, because I actually did get an email from one of the coaches for one of the junior teams asking that we enforce the size rule for junior First Lego League, exactly for that reason, because they come in with big, huge things with all this Lego, and it makes other teams like feel bad. It makes them, it's not a good warm, fuzzy feeling. It's not about our core values if they do that. So, yeah.
Okay, here's my answer. We always have a coaches meeting the morning before the thing begins. I think the head referee should step up and mention that there's limited space by the tables. If you have a lot of equipment to bring, come and speak to the head referee after the meeting, and let's go take a look at your pets and see how much you have, and make a decision before you come to the game. Excuse me. What do you think?
I think that's perfect.
Okay. Update.
Quick challenge updates. The 3 that are on here are kind of silly, but I think it's worth mentioning that they exist. This is the challenge updates document. That's you can find it in the same place that you find the challenge guide and those sorts of documents. So the 3 that are on here, the first one's Meteoroid Catcher Shape. I think that there was either in a video or another picture, the Meteoroid Catcher looked slightly different. This one is just saying that the model is correct. The second one, this one's kind of interesting. So it's saying...
Can I back up a little bit?
Yep.
Remember, the order of priority for rules is photographs, videos, they have no authority. So pictures have no authority.
The other thing is that the challenge updates are a higher priority than the challenge guide. So there's, I think in that order is also listed in the challenge guide. The order of like which things have the highest priority. The next thing is these core samples. This is just a clarification saying that, let's say I only pull off 2 of the core samples. I don't know where the second one, oh there it is, roll off 2. But anyways, I only pull off 2 of these, and I take this one regular sample, and I take it over to the 3D printer, and I complete this mission successfully. Even though I haven't pulled all the core samples off of here,
off of the axle, this mission is still scored. So those two missions are sort of completely separate. You have the mission of all of the core samples are not touching the axle, that's a mission. And then you have the 3D printer mission. So they kind of they live independently. And then the last one is meteoroid reset, which I think comes back to what Jack was saying, where by rule R10 in mission M14, a meteoroid may never be reset outside base by hand during a match. And I think that came about because they reset it by hand in a video.
I think teams wanted to have 3 or 4 tries at this.
Right, so once it's out, it's out. Can't put a cat back in bed. You can't put the cat back in
I
bed.
know, I just think it's
Why are you
funny
putting
to
cats
talk
in
about.
bags?
What do you do in Ohio?
They stuff cats in the bags.
Well, I mean,
Christmas.
normally it's used like rumors. Like, once a rumor's out, it's out. You can't put the cat back in the bag.
Okay, so Connor just asked a question. How do you guys go about timing the lag between pressing a button on a phone and saying 3, 2, 1, Lego?
That's for FTC.
Can you confirm that I read that right? Because I might.
Yeah, okay, so, because I think isn't the app, you have the timer app on your phone, because you do this, Fred, that connects to the score timer.
Yeah, okay.
And that there might be a lag between when
So
you
this is
hit-
between when you say le and when the scorekeeper hits start counting down.
The moment whoever yells out 3, 2, 1, Lego, the moment that person says la, they can go. Doesn't matter what the beeper does.
So you're saying
What
is
the person does.
any lag in the score in the clock is just the match will end a second later.
Voice or whatever, yeah. It's gotta be the voice, the human voice.
And you can't, there's no way you could get that timer reset and everything else, so you live with
But
second.
after that, the timer is official.
Yeah.
So after that,
Yeah.
after that start, whenever the timer ends, is when the match ends.
In other words, the robots start on the voice saying le and they end on the time running out.
If you're having problems during the tournament in terms of that timer seems to be lagging or not working or jumping around, contact us because we've had that problem and can help you fix it.
The end actually is more of a problem. Do we finish when the 0 hits or when the buzzer goes? Is that also a lag?
That could also be a lag, yeah,
If there's a lag, if the buzzer goes after the 0, what do we go with? I think we have to go with.
I will
the
say
0.
there are also times when the audio just drops
I don't
out.
think we've ever had that problem.
We have had the problem where the sound has just died for a couple of matches.
Yeah, but not what you said, which is different. Like 0 and then the buzzer,
Yeah.
or the other way around. I think they've been consistent, but the sound may go away.
If you have a problem, make your own decision at your
Your
own
best
tournament.
bet.
And plus, everybody's usually doing the countdown, that's always good practice at the end. Usually the head ref is like, you see the end of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is pretty obvious. So even if you don't hear that sound of the buzzer, you're gonna hear the end of that countdown. You should see that visual also.
As long as they don't count too fast or too slow, which they
Yeah.
have.
Oh, well, that's true. You don't wanna just like,
That was it, one.
Oh, yeah, one more, there's one more thing is, there's no restarts. Some teams, they have a bad start, they want to start over again. Sorry, no restarts.
So what happens if they start their robot 3 seconds early? If they start their robot when you say 3,
They have to bring it back. Yeah, it's that simple. There's no penalty before the match starts. Yeah.
but will that stop your countdown?
No, it won't stop the countdown.
Okay.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Let's say they intentionally started early and you mixed it all the way out of base before
You get to
time
the
starts. I think that should be an interruption and they have to bring it back.
So
I mean, this isn't something we see a
we
lot.
have said Lego, and it's still out there.
Yeah, I mean, generally it'll be, they grab it again and they start it again, and it's just an accidental, it counts against their time, but they have to
Yeah,
start
let's
it
just
again,
go
it's
with
just
that.
accidental.
Counts against their time.
Yeah, I think rarely you'll see a robot mixed all the way out
Oh.
of base before.
Usually
Um,
they're a couple seconds late.
Okay, we have another clarification from Aladala. Are we restarting matches if the timer fails for any reason? If the screen turns off, if the timer freezes,
Yeah.
that's a restart? Okay.
Yeah, and those you wanna try to generally go, right then. You don't really wanna schedule those for later, you kinda wanna
Just restart it immediately, yeah.
just restart immediately, cause you have the teams there.
Mhm.
Give them their minute or two to get reset and going again, and then try it around again.
I did that one, yeah.
Um,
We're way ahead of you.
I have a delay, it's popping up on your screen before it's popping up. I'm like, "Ah."
The other thing that we've done in the past, if you're having a lot of timer issues, is you can have the MC sort of stand behind the official timer and call it out. So that's another thing you can do.
Yeah, if that match is 2 minutes into the match, and that screen goes off, do you want to start over at that far into it? If the MC has a watch or something.
Or if the MC can see the official timer, I think is what we normally do. So the MC is standing behind the scoring computer that has the official timer.
Basically, in the case that the projection screen goes down, but the MC can run over to where the projection is running from
And use a microphone.
and just call out the timer. In that case, we wouldn't restart the match.
So again, up to the head referee.
But
at
fix
the
it
tournament.
before the next.
Yeah.
If I write this point, put here.
All right.
Wow. I think we're done.
Okay, all good.
Okay? See you guys, see you hopefully at Nationals.
If they want
Oh.
Peter's playlist, it's PK''S space FLL.
Say that again.
I was saying
Well,
again,
no, but you,
PK,
Apostrophe F. Oh, now see, I forgot. I gotta Google it.
Um,
It is PK, capital P, capital K, apostrophe S space FLL, all in caps.
FLL.
Yeah.
this will go out in an email, I assume.
It'll go
Yeah.
out in an email as well,
Um,
but it's a good playlist for
Is
We had
Peter-
one last minute question,
Spotify.
possibly many one last minute questions, but this is one. Back to the thing about if a team breaks a rule before you have a chance to tell them not to. If they bring 5 motors to the field,
So as
What do you do?
the referee should be able to see all of the things that are on the field, you should catch that beforehand. If you don't, I would say don't let them use the tool.
so if they have their robot and they have 3 attachments that all have motors on them, do you
If you
just
catch it
say
beforehand,
send one of them back to the pits? Or?
I think if you catch it beforehand, you need to tell them that this is too many motors to be having at the field. You need to make it so you only have 4 motors, and they have like 30 seconds to get rid of the extra motors.
you guys,
So
in
here's
a
a-
perfect world, we'd have somebody checking every robot before they come in, kind of like FRC. But this isn't a perfect world. We don't have enough volunteers to do that.
Oh.
And oftentimes the head referee and referees are so busy doing other stuff, we just miss that extra motor, and it has happened.
So the Clarks had that problem in Denmark. The first ranked team, it was discovered they had 5 motors and they were removed from the rankings. But that's one of those cases where they should have found out.
That's an international event.
Yeah.
At that point, absolutely, that's a good call at that level. I
Yeah.
think,
I guess what I would say is, in the past, we have had robot inspectors for FLL. And you've had to go before your match, and you would have somebody who would actually make sure that it was legal. And we've sort of gotten away from that, mainly because we don't have enough volunteers. But if you guys think that this is a year that there's enough changes that's worthwhile doing, it's absolutely a volunteer position you can add back into your tournament. We probably should do it for states and nationals, at the very least, to make sure that even if something got through a tournament, at least states and nationals, it's not gonna happen. But if you don't have enough volunteers, then what are you gonna do? Like, it's a tough one, but we have done that before. And that way, the referees didn't have to worry about it. It was one less thing for them to deal with.
Okay, so here's a question that occurs to me. If a team has designed attachments using 5 motors, but they know they can only use 4 during the match, but they want to show their 5th attachment working to the judge who's also standing there, do you let them do that during the match?
no,
No, you should only be able to bring 4 motors, and that's part of your judging session now too. So.
Any more last minute, just one more question?
Oh, Connor said maybe make it part of the robot design judge's job to pre-approve or whatever. Yeah, maybe
They
not.
have enough to
They're
do.
not gonna have the time. They've got to do their pre-stuff.
well,
Yeah.
I love the fact you're looking for solutions.
I mean, it is one more volunteer. It's doable, but
And it's generally very quick.
I mean, you
You're
could
going
even-
around looking at like, what are you bringing to the field, checking, making sure no parts aren't Lego, and you have the correct number of motors,
To
and
be
the
honest-
right types of sensors.
The field resetters could be doing it after they reset the field when the team is loading on. They could be having a search.
Lights around.
If you have field resetters.
The big
Most
thing
tournaments
is,
do.
I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, the other problem is our field resetters are usually young kids. And but I'm not sure that I want younger kids making those calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So-
definitely, I think they can ask a ref if they think that something isn't right.
I think if you're worried about it, you can also bring that up at the coaches meeting in the morning. Remember, only 4 motors. Just remind them. And if they bring up more than 4, I think they're violating the gracious professionalism.
4 robots and 4 motors and 1 robot. I've had teams bring 2 robots that are different because they want to do extra
And
missions.
very innocently.
Mm.
Yeah, very innocently.
Oh,
So,
question about that,
Mhm.
just a devil's advocate, are they allowed to have 2 robots at the event and use 2 different robots in 2 different rounds?
yes,
Yeah, as long as the second one's in the pit.
Says you're not allowed to.
yeah, yeah, you
As long as
can.
in the pit, you can.
Yeah,
Okay. I need to check the rules again then because that's
Yeah.
not how I read it.
Yeah, you can do that in the pit. You just need to bring a robot, as in like an EV3 brick and an XT brick, up to 4 motors, some sensors to the field.
In other words, you can bring 3 robots with you to the field and run 3 completely different robots, 1 each round, if you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, Jack, here's a devil's advocate one for you.
You have a team who innocently did not understand that rule, and in round 1, they bring 2 robots to the table. If it's an innocent mistake, you know they didn't do it on purpose, where's the line?
that's round 1.
Sounds like my
They have to
attachment
be
question.
judged.
Yeah, they're being judged, and
I have a simple solution. She loves doing this.
Okay, so Oladala says the clocks say, just confirming, the teams can bring a second robot to robot design judging, but they can't run it. I think it's a question.
I don't think you can do that anymore.
no, not with this pilot.
So here's what I'm gonna do, and head refs, you can do what you wanna do, but,
No, it's gonna be consistent.
okay, well, it's not really a deal, not up to you guys. I am going to tell that team, sorry, you have to remove one robot, we'll wait for you. I would just give them 5 more minutes. It's not gonna happen to more than 1 or 2 teams. So I think we just, if it's an innocent mistake, which I believe it would be, I'd say we'll wait for you 5 minutes. And if they'll be upset maybe, but
What are you gonna wait, just for them to get rid of one?
Just remove one from the playing
remove one
area.
from the table,
Yep.
from the area.
Connor points out that rule 2 says second robot must stay in pits. Yep.
Second, this is what?
So it
Second
should
robot
stay
must
in
stay in
pits.
pits.
I think I would say
It's in the
as
rules.
long as it's out of the playing area, it's okay.
Yeah, see, I think you could just
I
give it
think
to a
play
coach,
Yeah.
tell the coach to go
But there
back in
are,
the crowd.
there are a number of rules that make robot design judging different this year than it has been in previous years with the pilot, because you have to keep to the rules that you would normally at the table. So yes, robot design judging will look pretty different. And I think that's just kind of how it is. Robot, yeah, it's just gonna be different.
Yeah, I guess what I would expect to see from some of our, more experienced teams that might have brought 2 or 3 or 4 robots to robot design judging, bring the one that you're gonna run, take pictures of the other stuff. You can bring pictures in to show the judges. There's no problem with that whatsoever.
Awesome. Good night. And
Any
good
more
luck.
questions?
No, that was it.
Excellent.
Thanks
Hey,
for
Mick,
tuning
Mick, are
in.
you gonna come to our tournament this year? You come with the nationals, right? Mick, you're gonna do the worm. Yeah? I want as many of you as possible to come to nationals, and can you imagine? Follow me. Can you imagine Winona singing one of her songs and all the referees that we can get doing the worm?
Mick is coming to a nationals, even if his team doesn't make it.
He'll be there.
Do the worm.
There we go, okay, well, I'll have to find the appropriate song.
No, it doesn't matter, just any song.
Just, oh, any song, it's good, yeah.
Drop a
we'll do
beat.
that. We're in.
I haven't
It's
felt
on.
good for a couple of years, but I'm feeling good now. So watch
good.
out,
We're glad.
watch out.
That's awesome.
All right. Are we out?
Thank you
Oh,
all.
yeah, yes, we hit, did you hit the button?
I haven't yet.